Welcome back to Awards Magnet. We are live, Joyce, to talk about the 2025 Oscar nominations.
Big day for Brazil.
Oh my God, Brazil was blowing up the live chat. I saw it flying
Are
as
they in
Rachel
our live
Senna.
chat
I'm sure they
right
are.
now? I don't know. I'm
As
not on
Rachel
it.
Senna and Bowen Yang were announcing the 2025 Oscar nominees, and I'm still here, just all over the place, Joyce. Fernanda Torres, Best Actress, Best International Feature, and Best Picture. One of the two surprising Best Picture nominees, Joyce.
I would say I'm Still Here in Best Picture was really the only big shock of them. Like everything else was pretty chalk or predictable, or if it wasn't like the odds-on favorite, it was probably like sixth or seventh.
Mm-hmm.
Like discussed. But I don't know if anyone seriously discussed I'm Still Here in Best Picture. But this is power to our faves. SPC, Sony Pictures Classics.
We've talked about this a lot throughout the season. Doubt SPC at your own risk, which I guess I did, but I had Fernando Torres, but we did. I did not take it seriously as Best Picture nominee. It actually makes a lot of
Well,
sense
that's what I'm
in
saying.
hindsight.
Like in Best Picture, like everyone was basically just talking. I mean, obviously, international film was a given, and then it was just like, will Fernanda make it in? And that was really it. And maybe like even adapted. Like I had in an adapted screenplay a couple times. I took it
Mm-hmm.
out, but I don't think anyone was really saying like Best Picture nominee.
I think I saw maybe one or two people talking about it for Best Picture nominee. The other surprising Best Picture nominee was Nickel Boys, Joyce, which maybe not technically a surprise because I think a lot of people were still having it, but it was outside the top 10 in the odds.
Yeah, like that was always like I think most people either had it in 10th or 11th, really,
Mm-hmm.
but it kind of makes sense it got in over Sing Sing. Poor Sing Sing.
So
But because like Nickel Boys is definitely the one where like they could get the passion number one votes.
it had the women talking package, Joyce. It has the adapted screenplay nomination and Best Picture.
Yeah, and like women talking, it felt like it in hindsight that made sense it got in because it also made SAG Ensemble, which obviously Nickel Boys did not get.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
The other Best Picture nominees, all expected, as we said, from the PGA, the PGA 10, but it was Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, The Substance, Amelia Perez. What am I missing? I think that's it.
Wicked. Are you
And
just
Wicked,
not reading?
obviously. Oh, I was reading. I stopped reading after I got the other two. And Wicked, that was the top 10.
So a real pain snubbed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and no Sing Sing. I think those were the top 10 in the odds. A real pain and Sing Sing and
Yes, they
9 and
were.
10th. Yeah.
Um, so that was great. In the acting categories, Joyce, just do top lines here. Uh, Best actress. We talked for a while. Will the four make it in? And the four made it in. The four Golden Globes comedy musical nominees all made it in. Cynthia Erivo, Mikey Madison, Demi Moore, Carlos V. Gascon, and then Fernanda Torres. So that was the top five in the odds, and that actually gets in. So
Yeah, this is the first time four Globe Comedy Musical nominees transferred. And there's just one drama, but the winner.
And for Best Actor, it was the same four guys we've been talking about it for a while: Adrian Brody, Timothy Chalamet, Colman Domingo, Ray Fiennes, and then Sebastian Stan Joyce for The Apprentice, which we were so excited about.
Um, I know a lot of people were still predicting Daniel Craig. I saw a lot of that the past couple
Yes.
days, and that just really felt like hope dicting
Mm-hmm.
to me. Just because there were just so many signs that, I mean, especially after last week with BAFTA, that was probably not going to happen. And this one, where if you keep the alphabet in mind, it was pretty quick. You realize that Daniel Craig was snubbed because it just goes from Brody, Chalamet to Domingo.
Yes. And then it was just a matter of which Sebastian Stan performance, because a different man got nominated for makeup choice. But we had said when we did our predictions that The Apprentice clearly had bigger international support based on how it performed at BAFTA, and perhaps that gave him an edge in the category over a different man.
I don't. I'm not sure anyone was predicting him for a different man here. So
No, not in real life. But I mean, if they would have happened, would you have been totally shocked? I think him getting nominated does not feel like a shock, but not even for The
no,
Apprentice
because
either.
like
But
you literally just said, like The
right.
Apprentice was the stronger movie here. It was long listed 6 times
Mm-hmm.
at BAFTA, and he got in at BAFTA. And I mean, I always had a different man in makeup. Like I never dropped it there, but I never really seriously considered him or, like Adam Pearson in anywhere
No,
else
no.
here. So it was like, I mean, but it's cool that he won a Globe for one movie and is now nominated for an Oscar for a different movie.
And then in the supporting categories, Joyce, and then we'll talk about all the nominations and stuff. Just a top line here. Uh, the supporting categories, after all this consternation and oh my god, what is it going to be? It ends up like pretty chalk, I would say. So supporting actor ends up Kieran Culkin, Ed Norton, Nero Borsov, Jeremy Strong, and Guy Pearce. That was the five I predicted when we did our predictions last week. I think you as well. Denzel Washington had fallen off. Clarence Macklin, uh, not in. And there you go. I actually had I have to correct myself talking too fast. I actually had Clarence Macklin in, and I put Guy Pearce back in. But in the long story short, is I ended up with what the five were. I think you had this five when we did our predictions.
Yes, and I wouldn't. It's only become chalk in the last week. I would not
Yeah.
say it's been like that the last couple weeks. There was a different set of chalk nominees in the fall
Yes,
because
we
it
talked about this
was,
because of Denzel and stuff, right?
yeah, Denzel and Clarence. But then Ed entered the chat and Jeremy
Mm-hmm.
to like really after the Globes, and then no one really took that seriously until like 2 weeks ago. But yeah, it was again just like I think people got a glimmer of hope last week with Clarence making it in to BAFTA, but again, they have six nominees, and that was from the long list. So I think you also have to remember that we talked about this last week. Having the long list, it gives it's curated, so it gives the voters focus. Like
Mm-hmm.
they have time, they know what they need to watch if they have anything outstanding, and also just because not just picking on Clarence here, but like since we're talking about this category, just because he made it in there at BAFTA, that doesn't mean like he is their sixth favorite performance overall. That was just the sixth favorite performance of that 10. Like what if they
Right.
were fans of, I don't know, another supporting actor nominee,
Right.
whoever, but they didn't have the option of voting for that person. Like Karen Karuglian, he wasn't longlisted. So it's like, oh, I guess I'll just vote for Clarence because I enjoyed him, but not as much as Karen. But here
Mm-hmm.
in
And
BAFTA. But then, like in the Oscars, there's no restrictions. You vote for whoever you want.
and he's also a nominee because he's cited as a story credit for
Yes.
adapted screenplay. So it feels like we're getting a little. I'm sure if people are upset that he is snubbed as in the supporting actor category. But like last year with Greta Gerwig, snubbed for director, but not for screenplay. Or still an Oscar nominee. Margot Robbie still an Oscar nominee last year. We went over all this stuff, and everybody was like, "Well, it's not a snub and whatever." But anyway, he's snubbed here because he missed this category at least. And supporting actors choice, I feel so bad because I had this five. So excited when we did our picks. It was Zoe Saldana, Ariana Grande, which mostly everybody had, Monica Barbaro, Isabella Rossellini, and Felicity Jones. And we talked, and I was like, last week, and I was like, oh, this is what it's going to be. I didn't really consider Jamie Lee Curtis because I was like, the movie's not strong. And while she's maybe a host unto herself, like, the movie is not strong in supporting categories, go with the stronger movies. And then in my last tweaks, I was like, man, I'm gonna put Jamie Lee Curtis in, and I dropped Felicity Jones, and I doubted Felicity Jones all year, and that was such a mistake because she ended up getting in, and Jamie Lee Curtis is not nominated for an Oscar, which for people online, probably some people were very excited about that because I know she was a very contentious potential nominee, Joyce.
Yes. But, like I told you, this is what you get for doubting Felicity all year
You were
long.
right. You were right.
I told you. See?
Uh, Top line, Joyce. Amelia Price, 13 nominations. That's a record for non-English language films.
Yes. By three, so it wasn't even that close. It wasn't like they beat it by one. So
No,
the
and
previous record was 10 by Roma and Crashing Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
it got there without even uh, nominations for Selena Gomez or like some extra nominations that people were expecting it for it to rack up. It just kind of like hit all these places, right? So I think it's still I mean, it's got the most nominations. We've seen the most nominations doesn't always equal the front runner, right? But
Well, now we have 2 years in a row of 13-time Oscar nominees because
mhm,
Alpi got 13 last year, but that was the consensus frontrunner all the way through.
right,
So, but like the I think like there's like certain I mean a lot of films did well today. Like Brutalist got 10.
Yes.
It
The
got
Wick
the surprise editing nomination. Just great
hilariously
after this week. Just great.
David Johnsko
Who you've talked to.
I talked to, and he was very nice. And we could talk about the AI flap if we want, but neither one of us were very impressed with the
No,
response to the online
it's not a
choice.
thing. It's not a thing.
But yeah, I talked to him. He was very nice. It missed so many significant precursors, right? It was just left paid dirt everywhere, and yet
In editing.
in editing, yes, that nomination specifically, it kept missing all these places. The long movie, maybe it's not getting the Thelma Schoonmaker bump because it's not Thelma Schoonmaker, and then he still gets in for a nomination, which is great. And the other surprise editing nomination was Wicked, which was ninth in the odds. You talked to Myron Kirsten, I believe.
I did.
Right?
He was great. Yes.
And completely
And also a
unexpected.
previous nominee for Tick Tick Boom.
Yes. And great, that was a great nomination too. Completely unexpected based on the odds. And the top two in the odds were Dune Part 2 and Conclave, both missed in the category. Just wild
Yeah.
stuff. That was like really one of the most wild ones, I would say.
It was great. And also we talked about this last week with the Brutalist and editing. Like I kind of felt like it missed like Ace and BAFTA because those things were so early,
Right.
and maybe like the movie was underseen. So, but it is great for that it was able to get in because it is so long too,
Yes.
and it's not Thelma cutting it. So that was great because I feel like a lot of people were down on it and probably had it out of editing.
I mean, I definitely did. I don't. Did you keep it in? I forget.
No, because I replaced it with a complete unknown. Remember, I had it in first for basically 4 months because I just left it there,
And a
and then
complete
I
unknown,
swapped it for a complete unknown.
funny, a complete unknown missed editing, which I thought would have made it in, but it gets costume designs, which was not widely predicted.
I put that in. Ariana
I had it in
Phillips.
too. I
Yeah.
had Arian Phillips too. But it's fun. All of these movies like hit different. Like in the end, I felt like this was a funny year because like while it was so kind of up in the air and fluid, it does feel like a lot of the things that we're talking about like ended up just being expected outside of like we said like I'm Still Here, Best Picture nominee, and some of these editing nominations, but nothing was like that shocking based on what we saw today.
No, because like it was just a lot of like one or two spots that were swapped. But I don't even know. Like I don't even think anything was like a huge snub. You know.
I I mean I don't either. I guess nothing. The biggest snub. It was tough to like. I did the snubs and surprises post, Joyce, for our site, which I left the TK in there, which I know you were making fun of me for. I hate when I do that.
I didn't make fun of you for it. Our mutual friend made fun of you for it.
I mean, you obviously were making fun of me for it too, though.
But
That's fine.
I just alerted you. To
You just
it,
alerted
so.
it. Yeah, I hate
I
when I
was
leave the
passing along
TKs
the
in.
message.
Pulling back the curtain. You pre-write all
Love
these
a
things.
TK. You write a
You leave
TK.
TKs in
Yeah.
and you fill it out. Rookie mistake leaving it in. But anyway, even there, I was like, oh, it's hard to find like a lot of because a lot of the snubs we kind of had already called as snubs because of the way the season went. So like I think 2 months, like a month ago, if you were like Angelina Jolie is snubbed, like that would have been a big headline. But today, it barely even made a dent in the discourse because no one was expecting her to get nominated for Maria at this point, or Nicole Kidman, in the Best Picture race. Like we said, Sing Sing and A Real Pain are snubs, but it's not like they were always like the bottom two, and it always felt like certainly Sing Sing was in and out, in and out. A Real Pain kind of got there just by default. It felt like it was in the bottom. Like it never that's one where I was like always surprised it was in there so strongly, but also like I didn't know what else to put in there. Screenplay categories, very chalk. September 5, an Oscar nominee, Joyce. I'm sure people are thrilled about that.
Great. I almost put that in last night. But I felt like I made too many changes, so I didn't do it.
Let's talk about like so for you how these look now that we're going to get into phase 2.
A moment of silence for my favorite phase 1. That's the most fun. Now it could get really boring.
It could get really boring. I'm sure somebody will say like, "Is Kieran Culkin is strong because A Real Pain missed Best Picture?" It doesn't
And
really matter.
he would be the first supporting actor winner not from a Best Picture nominee since Christopher Plummer.
Could happen, but like, who
Yeah,
would beat him? Who's it going to be?
yeah, and it's not like people are not going to vote for him because A Real Pain was not nominated in Best Picture.
Correct.
Like no one thinks like that. Um, but I think today, like Amelia Perez, the Brutalist, and Honora basically got everything they needed.
Yes. Nora went. I think has six. Right. It did not miss a single
No, it got everything it
predicted
needed.
spot.
Yeah.
Editing, screenplay, director, actress, picture, and supporting actor. Conclave, I feel like takes a little bit of a hit here. We didn't even talk about director, Joyce. But Edward Berger was snubbed, and I feel like a schmuck because I said this would happen like last week.
Well, this is why I would, because you were like upset because you slacked me like after director, and I was like, "Why are you upset? This is what you predicted."
So I predicted that Edward Berger would miss again because I think rightly that Mangold was going to get the bump from the director's branch, and that ended up being true. Whatever, like it doesn't mean I was right, but he gets in, and Corley Farja felt like a passion pick, and she would get in too. And then I was just like, I don't know, maybe I'll just do the DGA 5, and it felt like Berger was so obviously going to get in, so I took out Corley and I put Berger back in, and that was such a fool move because Berger was snubbed again in Best Director. So it's Brady Corbet, Jacques Audiard, Sean Baker, James Mangold, and Corley Farja.
To be fair, I don't know if anyone had that combo in the end because I think a lot of people were wrestling just between Corley and James for the final
Yes.
spot. So
Yes.
yeah, because I was like, I should just do the DJ 5, but I just kept Corley instead of James. So
Um, so Conclave misses the director nomination, misses an editing nomination, misses cinematography nomination. This feels like, to me, that feels like not great, Bob.
I mean, it still got 8 nominations. It missed, like, obviously it was more competitive below the line than Honora. Like no one was talking about Honora in those categories.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not detrimental to it. It's not like it got like 5 nominations, which doesn't seem like a huge difference, but I think it is when you're talking about like a top 5 Best Picture
Mm-hmm.
contender. But yeah, I mean, I guess like just based on its haul, you could probably, I think most people would move it down, like maybe to like 5th in their top 5 for Best Picture, just because it is missing director. Everberger, 2 times in a row, no directing nomination
And two times in a
for
row,
for Academy faves.
and overperforming BAFTA movies, right?
Yeah.
Like obviously.
And yeah, I mean, it still did well. Like it got uh screenplay,
Again, it's hard to say,
and
and none of these did poorly.
two
You know, I mean,
acting.
obviously,
Yeah,
right?
like it
It
still got
didn't do
8.
poorly, but I'm just saying, like, if you were thinking it could be a sneak winner or like a consensus winner, it still could be. But I just think it missing editing, cinematography, and directing feels like just not great when you have like Wicked overperforming with like editing, right? Or
But I
Brutalist
would
performing
say,
really well, like we said, with editing
I,
also.
I mean, I would say like The Brutalist, Honora, Amelia, those are like in the first tier of, like, they didn't miss anything really. And then the second tier, I would have Conclave, A Complete Unknown, Wicked, and The Substance, because they're all kind of missing something. Like Conclave doesn't have directing.
Mm-hmm.
And A Complete Unknown doesn't have editing.
Right?
Substance Miss Margaret, which is not that surprising after the last week.
Correct.
Also no editing. And Wicked, as expected, did not get directing or screenplay.
I think if I would have been, I'm not going to predict. I'm not sure what I'll probably just keep Amelia Perez in first when I'm doing my first picks for Oscar winners. I would have been more inclined to put Wicked higher if it had gotten in for adapted screenplay, but I never thought it was going to get in for John Chu for directing. I don't think a
No.
lot of people did. I think it was an out. I feel like it was probably in that 6, 7, 8 range for adapted screenplay, just based on how the season is shaken out. Um, I don't know. I'm like, if I was expecting, I'm probably not gonna predict Conclave. I guess we'll see. But I just was like, I didn't think that was just not I think of those ones that you talked about that have key misses, that has like the most key misses to me, I guess. They're all in, like, you're right, they're all in that tier of like, did really well, could have done a little better, or got surprise nominations or missed other nominations. But I think that top group, like we said, is still that top group. So
Right. But I guess if you're talking about the best picture win on a preferential ballot, I think I would still put The Substance below Conclave, just because there will still, it will have more detractors than something straight down the middle like Conclave.
I think that's fair. Any other headline choice here on this
from Best Picture?
Yeah, or any of the categories, whatever you're in the mood for.
I mean, there's so much stuff. I don't know.
Dune missed a Dune underperformed, I would say. You
Dune
were kind of calling
5.
it
Yeah,
Two Towers, and
it
you
was
were
going to
right
get
on
Two
the money.
Towers. It got Two Towers, and even worse than Two Towers, because it only got 5 and Two Towers got 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I don't know. But it's also funny because it won, the first Dune won 6 Oscars last time, so it got fewer nominations than wins. The first one got.
What else was I looking at here? There's so much, Joyce. There was a lot. Wild Robot. Here's a great one. Wild Robot gets in for score, which I think I had dropped it from, but misses song, which everyone had, including me, for Kiss the Sky, an absolute banger.
Sound.
And it got sound. So another one where it's like, huh? It's so funny. Like all of these movies, you're like, oh, like I'll tell you this: when Sing Sing got in for song, I was bullish on it
like,
getting in for picture. Well, I was like, oh, I guess it maybe will make it in for Best Picture, because it wasn't really expected to get that. Well, that's not true. I think it was fifth in the odds at the like.
Yeah, like it was pretty high. I think. I mean, there was a point like 3 months ago where Sing Sing was predicted to get 5 Oscar nominations,
yes,
including song. So.
But I never really took it seriously. I don't mean to speak for you, but I was like, I was so, as when it got in, I was like, oh my god, look at that, Sing Sing got in for song, and it had him for adapted screenplay. And even though Miss Clarence, I was like, huh, that's pretty good. It'll definitely get in for Coleman, and maybe it'll get in for picture, but no. So yeah, so Kiss the Sky missing Maren Morris. I mean, that's such a great song. I don't know how that missed, but sure. Elton John gets in.
I put Elton back in. I was like, I need to drop like Harper and Will, because I was like, nothing's been going on with that song.
And at least, I mean, it doesn't really matter, because they're not going to do the songs this year, Joyce. That was one of the things they announced yesterday.
Well, why do them after you've peaked with Ryan Gosling? So.
I thought that was the reason too. I was like, oh, they're not going to be able to top this, so why even bother?
And also, like, no shade to any of these songs, but it's like none of these hold a candle to like last year's lineup, really.
No. Low nominees that I was like, oh, this is a great one. Alien Romulus, Joyce, for visual effects, which I had. I don't know if you had that one too.
No, I had Twisters, remember?
Right. Better Man, obviously, a low nominee, but for visual effects.
I had that. Monkeys.
Great. Nosferatu is nominated. Different Man, like we said, a low nominee. It's a really nice, I mean, yeah, in the end, like everything that you would want to maybe see here is here. Challengers getting paid dust.
Yeah, a lot of, I mean, obviously, film Twitter upset about the Challengers score snub, which was really its best shot at a nomination. Mm-hmm. I never once put that in. Just like from the moment I saw the movie last spring and heard the score, I'm like, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the score myself. Like, I tolerate it, but I'm just not into that type of music. But I was like, I understand why people like it. It's such an online type of music score, but I just can't see the music branch. They're so like temperamental and insular, going for that kind of sound. And then it won the Globe, which I think, emboldened a lot of people and Challenger stands to predict it and lock it in. But I was like, there's a lot of disconnect between the Globe's music winners and the Oscar nominees. Mm-hmm. And I think I mentioned last week, like, it's like they gave it to First Man and the Oscars didn't even nominate it.
Right.
And then like, and they do name checks in this branch. Like they nominate John Williams all the time. So that's why I had Stephen Schwartz in for Wicked. Mm-hmm.
I had Stephen. I put Wicked in too. I don't know if we did that on the show.
Did you copy me?
I had the top 5. I have the 5 for Wicked. I did Brutalist, Conclave, Millie Press, Wicked, and Wild Robot.
I can't believe you copied me.
Well, it's not really copying you. Yes, you don't have proprietary knowledge of, or whatever.
Well, it's because you didn't have it when we did it.
So. No, but I made so many other changes. Girl with the Needle for international film, Joyce, getting it over Kneecap. That's another thing. Again, every year we're like, how much should we take these precursors seriously? I was like all in on Kneecap after the BAFTA awards, and then doesn't even make it in there. So
It like I think in the end it was just too like UK ish,
yeah.
you know. But yeah, Girl in the Needle, uh, like Denmark. Denmark's been
Mm-hmm.
doing really well
Mm-hmm.
in this category, and then
And
Flo getting in
Flo getting
too,
in the double
along
nominations,
with
right?
animated.
Uh, for cinematography, Girl with the Needle, a lot of people I think were predicting that as well, or hoping for it, or expecting because it's black and white. But no, Ed Lackman gets in for Maria Joyce after all this.
I put him in after the seven ASC noms.
Nice.
And they did Amelia, which was snubbed by ASC.
Correct. And no no Conclave there, which I was like we talked about, and no Wicked, which I'm sure people were very excited about.
Yes, but yeah, this one was. I also dropped Dune from cinematography because
Mm-hmm.
they don't usually do sequels here. But that made it.
It hit. That was one of the ones that hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. So for phase two, Joyce. So like, we're not going to do our first Oscar picks here or anything. In the acting categories, how do you like? How are you feeling now based on what we see here? Like coming into this, I think a lot of people are probably like, I don't know, Demi Moore probably, right? Like Ascendant or Adrian Brody or Timothy Chalamet. I mean, obviously we have so many precursors to come, and we haven't seen like anything really since the Globes because of everything being delayed. So we'll have like a crunch of ceremonies and televised events to give speeches and have people kind of get flip flop on their picks. People being me, because I'll just be like, oh, that was a great speech. I'm going to put them in first place. But I guess like based on how these movies performed, how do you think these acting races are going to look?
Well, obviously, a lot of people now think Timmy can win,
Mm-hmm.
not just because of a complete unknown doing well today, but
Right.
also the AI BS
Correct.
too. But like we said, the Brulas also did well today.
The AI thing, we don't need to talk about it that much, and it already feels like it was 3 news cycles ago. But just
Yes.
as a note, people were mad because they used AI in audio editing for the Hungarian language portions of the film,
Yes.
and only a small
When
portion of that.
Adrian and Felicity actually speak Hungarian, not their Hungarian accents when they're speaking English. Everyone was conflating those two. I'm like, those are not the same
Yeah,
things.
accents and dialect are different, so
Yeah.
it's just not the same thing.
And
So people are
also
like, "Oh, I can't
everything
believe."
every
Yeah,
every performance is manipulated and edited in post. So
correct.
this is no
So
different from like Maria mixing Angelina Jolie's singing voice with Maria Callas's singing voice.
correct. Um, I don't know. I don't think it'll impact. Like, if I pick Timothy Chalamet, it's not going to be because anything to do with that. But I do think he could win. Though I will say, like, as good as Complete Unknown did and hit like in a lot of places, I was expecting even more because I thought like editing was on the table and cinematography maybe even or these different categories. So I'm like, it's like we were talking about. It's not a perfect. It didn't have like the perfect complement of like overperformance, but I still think that's a very competitive race that will reveal itself further in phase two. Um, and right now, because of the way the Brutal is performed, I still think you'd have to give the slight edge there to Adrian Brody because it's a stronger movie overall.
How many people do you think will say the Brulis could just pull a Power of the Dog and win director, or even like a Marty 0 for 10?
I think people will definitely think that. And I mean, it could. It depends. It depends on how phase. Like in phase two, people just like we've seen this a lot recently, right? Like it just is like, what are people going to be excited about? And like maybe it's like it could be like Wicked could really just be. What if it's what I mean? Like or any Amelia Perez could just continue to roll through or Complete Unknown. I don't know. Like you could see it happening. And Brutal is definitely profiles as that like Flower Moon, Power of the Dog, austere cineast movie that the voters are just like kind of like I'm not in the mood for this in phase two, right? Like it could happen. I don't know if it will. We'll have to wait and see. But it's not. If you told me in like if you told on March 2nd if when we're doing this, if you're like I'll be like, oh, look at that. The Brutalist was like that. I wouldn't be totally stunned, I guess. But I mean, you can't say that today when it had 10 nominations and like hit all these, every spot it was supposed to hit, including 3 acting nominations. There's clearly like obviously a lot of support for the movie.
No, and I think it's also stronger in below the line categories than like Power of the Dog was really, or even like Flower Moon. And I think the difference between all three of them is that I don't think anyone 3 months ago was pegging The Brutalist to win. You know,
No.
like from the start of their respective seasons, there was a lot of hype for Power of the Dog and Flower Moon. Even Flower Moon up against Oppie. A lot of hope dicting
Right.
there for that to be the one to win. But I think, yeah, like The Brutalist is more of an underdog, really, because I think because it's so long, of the intermission and everything, and it's like starting from behind and it's kind of building and it's already doing really well in its staggered platform release. Obviously it's like mostly cinephiles going to see it, but yeah, I don't think it has the same kind of target on its back, and I feel like it can really only build momentum, and I don't think the AI thing is gonna derail it by any means. Whereas like something like Wicked, like yeah, it's also missing these other like key nominations, but I think it's basically peaked in its like zeitgeistness, like when it opened. So it doesn't mean it's gonna that momentum's gonna completely disappear, but I don't think it get any higher. It's like
I mean,
it's like
but
like everyone's like already seen it and like talked about it. It's like obviously like the fans will always be fans. It's not like you stop liking Wicked, but it's just like it started at a high. It's like they're starting at different levels when they opened.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just like, if Wicked wins like SAG, right? Like ensemble at SAG, or I don't know. I just feel like there's going to be a renewed momentum for it, and that I think clearly the Academy like really.
Yeah, but that could just be like a Black Panther win,
It could, so. it could, or Hidden Figures, right, or something like that. But it could also be like a Coda win, or an Everything Everywhere win, or it's the movie that, in the end, what if it's the movie there's people, like we always say, like people vote for what they like. Maybe they just like that the best. I don't know what it'll end up being.
Yeah, but the race is too tight for it. Like if it had the same competition as Coda did, like sure. But like we just talked about, there's all these other movies that did well today.
Emilia Perez, obviously, 13 nominations, and remains probably underestimated by everybody, including maybe. I mean, I don't think either one of us have ever underestimated it. But even here talking about it today, we've barely even talked about it because I was just nothing
surprised.
It got 13 nominations and it missed Selena Gomez and still got 13 nominations, and it was a huge contender, obviously. And it remains, I think, the top for me. It will probably still be my pick for Best Picture when I'm making my when I'm ranking these movies for my first predictions. And it seems more likely than any of these to actually win Best Picture, frankly, at this point. And I know people online don't like it, but like clearly the industry is not online and they don't seem to be caring about it. And Anora could be like an underdog. It's still a very interesting race. And we have so much more to talk about, Joyce, but I guess we could, we have so many, if you've been in the live chat, this has been lovely to see. I guess we'll see, we'll be back. We can wrap it up here, Joyce. Email us at slugfest@goldderby.com. And we can be back next week, maybe with our first Oscar picks. What do you think? I guess we'll see.
You're going to have Wicked in first.
Wicked in first. Timothée Chalamet.
I'll figure out how to... You're going to have Monica.
Monica, Edward Norton I'll have in first. It's like a complete unknown sweep for acting. What other stupid things can I do?
Oh, so many.
I have so many. It's so many more weeks, Joyce. There's so many hours in the day to make foolish choices with my.
You should just start tracking how many times you update between now and March 2nd. Because you do it like at least 6 times a week.
Can I create an AI app for that, or would that get me canceled?
Oh yeah, use Respeecher.
Can I use Respeecher to tell me how many things I do? That would be great.
Yeah.
All right. If you're watching the live chat, thank you so much for watching. If you're listening to this, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. All right, bye, Joyce.